we're taught not to listen to the symptoms and wear it, like you said, as a badge of honor. They only help you when you're sick, and it's usually very far gone when you get there.
I feel like a lot of people don't even want to try.
That's so true.
Right? So you tried it, you were able to get to the experience, and now you have that enlightenment, and now you see how it affected your body, and you can move forward.
And realize it wasn't that complicated, like he said.
That was it. I was so relieved. I'm like, oh, thank you, Lord. It's not that complicated. I don't have to hire a team of scientists.
Yeah.
Kind of we blood
You're
work
not
on me.
gonna die.
Discomfort is not negative. And I think that's what stops a lot of people from engaging in healthier practices because it's uncomfortable. I think a lot of people don't even realize they're in love with stress.
Yeah.
They're in love with drama. They are in love with this avoidant mentality that we've developed. But the one common thing that all human beings share is that
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us here today. Thank you for allowing Harrison the opportunity to come here and speak. We pray that everyone who is able to watch this podcast is able to gain a wealth of knowledge and apply it to their daily lives. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So what does that mean, Harrison? Cognitive behavioral therapist.
it's really just a fancy way of saying that I help people change the way that they're thinking so that they can kind of better impact the way that they're feeling. Because it's hard to really change how you're feeling unless you change the motor, which is fueling the feeling. And that's usually our thoughts, right? The patterns, the intrusive thoughts, the things we're familiar with, the things we're not familiar with. I try to kind of plot a path to what people say they want. And I have to show that in order to get to where you say you want to be, you have to first start with where you are.
Okay.
And that's really like the hardest part about what it is I do, getting Bahamian people to see where they're starting.
Okay. What would you say is the moment you felt like you were called to be a therapist?
So before being a therapist, I was a banker, offshore banking, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I kind of was doing that part-time while I was in COB, now UB. And I found that it was very easy to do what it is they were asking me to do there. And I got very efficient at it. The problem I saw, though, was that the people who were there for like 20 plus years were being let go. And though they were positioning me to kind of take over some major roles, I was saying to myself, like, I don't want to be that in 20 years.
Yeah.
You know? So at that particular time, I started to dig a little bit deeper and ask myself really like tough questions, like, what's my purpose, you know? Like, what am I really here for? And I went into law.
Wow.
I started off with law. I was in that criminal justice program. But then I realized I was spending more time in the books than I was with people. I knew that I wanted to work with people much closer, and I thought that law would have been that way. But I always noticed it seemed to be the psychologists that they bring in, who are having the conversations with the people to understand what motivates them to do what they do. And lo and behold, it's like I forgot this whole time. I had a clinical psychologist for a father. So we sat down, started talking, getting the deep information about what this really is beyond just the stereotype. And I said, I think this is what I want to do. So at the same time, I worked on getting a football scholarship to kind of fuel and pay for that path into psychology. I went to Dickinson State University first, did what I needed to do there. Then I went to Texas A&M, where I finished off my studies, came back home, and for 3 years I didn't see anybody.
Wow.
Right? So I think that there's this wilderness period that everybody has to go through when you're walking into your purpose for the first time. And that wilderness period, I believe, for me was designed to really purge thoughts out of my mind and unhealthy motivations as to why I'm doing this, to really see that in the absence of making money, if this is still something I want to do. And it was in that 3-year period that I started to realize this is bigger than just me. And it wasn't until I realized that I started having clients come in. One client a month, turned into one client a week, turned into one client a day. And now I pretty much booked out for like 2 months in advance.
Wow.
So it's a blessing.
Yes, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So in that wilderness period, you would say you were intentionally not seeing people, or it was just, you maybe can't explain it, you just weren't seeing people?
That door was spiritually shut. Like,
That's what I was wondering.
I was trying to see people.
Yeah.
I was taking PTA meetings for free. I was speaking in youth groups for free. I rented a tuxedo from a certain place, and I took to the middle of Robinson Road with a sign.
Wow.
And the sign said, if your partner cheating on you, you need to come and see me.
Wow.
And I was just throwing my business
And that didn't
cards.
bring anyone in?
No, it got me
Spiritually.
traction.
Okay.
but people wasn't taking me seriously. Right? You know, behavior's like foolishness.
Right.
And I think at the time, people started reposting some pictures of me on social media. Some radio personalities brought me in because there was a buzz around this guy. At the time, I started my Facebook page for the first time too. That was back in 2011. And so I got a lot of viral hits. I was intentional about making edgy videos because I wanted clicks, right? And then once people saw that, listen, this guy is more than just someone on Facebook or wherever posting things, like he's a legitimate therapist, then people started to feel a little bit more comfortable taking risks with opening me up to what's going on in their life.
That's amazing.
And that just built until I got to where I am today.
That's incredible.
Truly.
That's an awesome story.
I know,
Thank
because
you.
like people will see you now and be like, oh, you know, some people, this comes easy for him. He
Yeah.
went to school. It's
They
natural.
taught him everything.
They taught him everything he needed to know.
Yeah.
You know, but you are saying that's not it.
It's not it. I
Yeah.
mean, it is a little easy.
Of course, it's your gifting. But, you know,
Right.
with your gifting, there
Exactly.
still comes work.
Yeah, because, you know, the weirdest thing that I never thought I would experience is that the more therapy I do, the better I feel. So I'll start my day either at 10 or 11 a.m. after I kind of do some self-care, right? Gym, spend time with the family, regulate,
Awesome. We love to
read,
hear it.
Yep.
devotions. And it's like the more therapy I do, I'm turning up. So by like 5 o'clock, people would think I'm tired.
Right.
But it's like I've been simmering.
Wow.
So
That's
that's
amazing.
an indicator for me that I know I'm working in my calling
Absolutely.
and in my purpose.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
usually people say, Harrison, I don't know how you do this. I couldn't take more than maybe 3 clients a day.
Right.
And I'm like, that's it?
Yeah,
So-
because you would assume that perhaps you're taking on everyone's burdens on you.
Yeah.
At least that's what
I
I'm
would-
thinking.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I struggle with that, because there was this thing where like people are coming to me with their issues, and I kind of felt like I was responsible for their happiness, their confidence. I was responsible totally for the relationship working out when I realized I just play a part in that. I think there was a guy that already came to earth who died for sins and gave us access to salvation.
Yes.
I ain't trying to do that again
Yeah.
because I think that's already there and it's still
Yes.
working.
Yeah, I
It
think
absolutely
it's What's
is.
his name? You say Jesus?
I think it's Jesus.
Yeah, I think
Jesus.
I think that's it, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So I'm like, listen, if we already have Jesus who's done that for us, then my goal here is simply to help. And I kind of think about therapy from a faith-based perspective as an arrow. I'm not the destination. I'm the arrow pointing you to where you need to go.
Absolutely.
So sometimes I am placed at the beginning of whatever people's journey may be. Sometimes I'm placed in the middle, and sometimes I'm placed at the end. And it's very interesting, those different perspectives that has kind of shown me and revealed to me over the years. Very, very intriguing. I don't think a lot of people know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. I think that's even a good way to go about, like, because everybody has to have, or everybody at some point has difficult conversations with
Yeah.
friends, family members, difficult conversations and just situations,
Definitely.
loved ones, significant others. So even, I know I'll speak for myself and say I at times take on people's burdens, or in the past I have, but just realizing what you just said, like I'm just a human.
Right.
I'm just a human being. I can't do it.
Right.
I can tell you who can, but for me, it's like a big weight off of me to not try and take that burden onto myself. It keeps your mind clear, your spirit clear. And what we've been learning a lot recently is how difficult or how bad the effects of stress on the body can be. So I'd like you to speak a little bit on that. Do you have anything to add to?
No, I mean, even from my personal experience, I would say that stress was a huge part of the situation that I ended up in.
Right.
And, we were doing COVID. We were trapped inside. I mean, we came out occasionally. And
But our work keeps us inside in general.
in general,
Right,
it
right.
does. It keeps our work inside in general. I mean, it wasn't also that. My body wasn't, I took a jab and my body wasn't prepared to take it, correct? However, like we're twins. We're supposed to be, genetically the same DNA. She should have been affected the same way that I was affected. However, she was doing a lot more. Her lifestyle was a little bit more different, even though we were in the same household.
Wow.
She knows how to maintain her weight. right?
Oh.
Just by the way she eats.
I see.
That was very
Okay.
difficult for me. After everything we've gone through and learning, I can do it a lot better just because I've learned so much. But I didn't know how to do it like her. I ballooned during COVID.
Same.
And so I was like exercising for an hour outside on the porch. I was sweating like crazy.
So she was getting the sun.
I was getting the sun and exercising.
Vitamin D.
Excreting all the
Vitamin D.
toxin, the vitamin D. I was gardening, so I was grounding, touching plants, connecting to the
good.
earth. I was only eating vegetables because I couldn't figure out how to like get my weight down. And I was eating green leafy vegetables, kale, stuff like that. And I was drinking a ton of green tea. So
That's the formula.
yeah, exactly.
She was detoxing.
I was detoxing like
From that
crazy
job.
from it. Yeah.
Wow.
So because even with genetic predispositions, which they say genetics load the gun, your lifestyle pulls the trigger, right? And so with us having the same genetic predispositions, we figured out that the only thing it could have been is the different lifestyles.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And so we look at ourselves like a little, science experiment, the constant and the variable.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So, so I love, because we know that stress can be like, it
It can
Sure.
affect, yeah.
yeah.
It
What?
affects you mentally as well as physically.
Physically.
It sure
yeah.
does.
It affects the way you communicate with people, how you connect with people, your relationships. So we'd love to hear you like just speak a little bit about that for the
Yeah.
audience.
Experience.
Stress is a lot like alcohol to some degree, where it makes things worse, just generally speaking, from any angle that you look at it, right? But we know that there's this version of stress that we call somatic stress. Stress that begins in the mind, whether it's via anxiety, via worry, but manifests in the body in some way, shape, and form. Hormonal downregulations or hormonal upregulations, right? Like cortisol. And so what happens when these kind of things take place, we're feeling very real symptoms, but we don't necessarily have a physical source to look at, right? And so it really points to how powerful the mind is, how powerful the machinery of that thought is, that can really drive us either into being our best self or our worst self. And I think off camera we started talking about it a little bit, that we wear stress as a badge of honor. What I usually say in my line of work is we've been too strong for too long. And when you see yourself as strong, you have a tendency to really downplay a lot of the signs that are showing you something's happening, right? I don't know to seek rest if I can't see that I'm tired. I don't know to seek food if I can't see that I'm hungry. So if I'm actively living in denial of what my body is showing me,
Actively living in
what my
denial.
mind is showing me, the only thing that's going to wake me up is crisis. And it seems like the only time we change is when there's a crisis.
Exactly.
So because the sun is out today and it's beautiful weather, I'm good, but that's not necessarily true. And sometimes being in a very stressed out state doesn't always show you symptoms when you're going through it. So it speaks to how intentional we have to be in slowing down our lives and making room to really be intentional, looking within, being still long enough to see if I'm really as good as I feel. Yeah.
For sure. I remember in college, now that you say that, I did a media production degree.
Okay.
And when we would come to the department every day, especially around like exam time, when you had like all the projects due, etc., people would literally be asking, how many hours of sleep did you get at night? And if someone got even close to like 6 hours of sleep, they're like, wow, that's really good. But it was like this behind the, unsaid thing that, if I got less sleep, I was hustling the most or doing the most work or I was, being a more productive person in society. There was like, the energy drinks, the Monster drinks back in the day. I only had that once because I think it tastes so bad.
What? I love those. I
yeah?
don't drink them a lot, but I love them.
You still drink those?
No.
Okay. I was just going to say.
He liked the taste.
He's like, yes, I do. 5-hour energy. I had that a couple of times too. But one time that made me feel like, I don't know, it was like drinking or something. I think I got a little twitchy, so I never drank that.
Overstimulated.
Yeah, I never drank that again. But I remember and I think back at it, and I do get a little upset, right? Because it's just like what you say. It's like we're taught not to listen to the symptoms and wear it, like you said, as a badge of honor, and it's almost to me like a conditioning to
Yeah,
drive
that's
you
it.
to where they want you to be.
Right.
I guess this is like conspiracy right now that I'm speaking about, where you need to be put into
They
the
want you to be
health
sick.
care.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's a
system.
huge industry, right?
Yeah,
It's
and
big.
The healthcare
And
industry is very huge.
they only help you when you're sick. You know,
There's a
it's
lot of
never
agendas.
prevention or, you know, and it's usually very far gone when you get there. You know
True.
what I mean? To the healthcare system. So, yeah, so when you say that, I just think about it and it's a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, it is.
And one of the reasons why we got into like this podcast, just to help people
give
know a
people
little
knowledge.
bit. Yeah, give people knowledge. You know, the Bible said people perish with the lack of knowledge. So,
I hear that. I think it's just, we can't take for granted how there's this middle line between being healthy and surviving.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people feel like they're pushed to this limit where it's like, I want to be healthier, Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get 8 hours of sleep, but I do have bills to pay, bro.
Mm-hmm.
And these bills are not going to pay themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about people having to do that without support, so we're now really normalizing a lot of dysfunction because we have no choice but to kind of live in that dysfunction. Or at least that's how we feel,
Right.
right? And so if it becomes our norm, we no longer see it as something to correct. So we learn to become okay with the chronic pain, or we learn to become okay with sleeplessness.
Right.
The headaches that show up, I could just pop a painkiller, right?
Correct.
We don't have to deal with the truth of what's going on. And that's what makes living life such an interesting thing, because you can get away with it. There is no limit to the things we can do to feel better, whether it's stopping to the bar, whether it's medications, whether it's escapism. But feeling better doesn't always mean that we are better. And so I often try to help my clients see that you have to choose the inconvenience of what it actually means to be better. We think that better is just this organic thing where here's the right time when all of my bills are paid and nothing's happening and now I can focus on myself. No, you're going to have to learn how to do that while yet still having
Simultaneously.
things going on.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge.
It is. And like you said, they have to choose the inconvenience. We always say
Convenience comes with a cost.
it does.
Sure does.
Everything convenience comes at a cost. You know, your nonstick pan usually probably has chemicals on it, you know.
The worst.
Popping that pill, the worst. Cancer-causing chemicals. You know, like you said, popping that pill, you never
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
why you're getting the headache in the first place. You never
Yeah.
have to deal with, it may take an hour or 2 hours to get rid of that headache because maybe you're tired, you need to nap. Maybe you need to drink more liquids, you know.
Maybe you're
Dehydrated.
Maybe you're
dehydrated, yeah.
dehydrated. Maybe you're stressed out and you just need to take a break.
Right.
But like you said, and I'm not going to say we don't fight that constantly. Like when you were coming in here, we said that I was telling you how we actively work to de-stress
Yeah.
our lives because we know how important it is. But at the same time, we still fiddle that line where this is a necessity. We still walk that line where I need to get this done at this point and period of time, despite everything that we've gone through, you know? So I'm not saying that I don't get it, but I'm just like, it's important to really know what should take precedence.
I think that's so interesting because I don't think I've ever really heard people say explicitly that they're actively working to de-stress their lives.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I just see people kind of squeeze it in with whatever time is left over. So it's like that 30 to 45 minutes I got in between the toddler just going to sleep and me falling asleep. Then I'll try to fill that space with a little self-care. And I'm like, that's not intentional enough. Like your mind is already gone. You're tired, your body aching, you're really focused on tomorrow. You're not going to really give to it what you need to. And so if I could ask you all a question, like what's the hardest part about making room to be intentional about de-stressing your life?
You want to go first?
No, you go ahead. I'm thinking.
For me, I think it's just like you said, the necessity of what needs to get done and
Okay.
reframing what you call a necessity, right? When we think of assets in life, like your time, your money, your physical health, it's what do you prioritize as the most important thing?
Okay.
Yes, this money right in front of me seems more seems like it should take more precedence than the sleep that I need to have or whatever. But if I said tomorrow, if I said I'll give you $5 million, but tomorrow you just won't wake up. Is money that important? And then it shows you what actually should always take precedence because I'm not going to say it's easy because a lot of us weren't taught through the school system how to make money.
Right.
That's why we're all in jobs that are stressful because it's not that we want to be there. You know what I mean? It's that you need this to get to, it's a means to an end.
Correct.
Right? So it's difficult for people to, and I think most people want to prioritize their time and self-care. It's just that you don't know how to figure out this aspect of life. There's a stronghold,
Right.
in my opinion, on figuring out how to survive monetarily. And so it takes a precedence.
That's so good.
That's my opinion and what I've seen.
Okay.
Now because we've seen what it is, and by the grace of God, financially, we were taken care of during Santia's situation. I think it gave us time to sit back and really think about it, you know, because when you're in a hospital room wondering if your sister's gonna wake up with her mind in the right place or whatever, I don't care about money.
Right.
You know what I mean? When she wonders if she's gonna speak again, or speak for yourself, sorry.
And to add to that, life still went on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even though I was in my situation, the work still got done. Everything that we were putting precedence on, our client work or any type of work,
Yeah.
everything got done and life moved on. So you're in this situation where you're in a panic, well, not a panic mode, but, you know, not balancing the stress of not balancing your healthcare along with what it is that you had to do. When you're in this situation now and your health is compromised,
Yeah.
everything still went on. The only thing that happened was you're not there.
Yeah.
Right.
You lost
So-
your health, but the world kept turning.
The world, everything kept moving.
Unbelievable.
And were you doing what you were supposed to do? Were you doing what God told you to do? Were you in purpose? You know what I mean? Were you taking care of your body? Because we think that's important. Where our bodies are temples of God, and that's aligned with our faith. And so
spirituality, yeah.
our spirituality. So were you doing everything God called you to do prior to this situation where your health is compromised, as well as the world is still moving on? The world will still move on, but when you answer
To God.
to God, did you do what you were supposed to do?
Did you take care of this
Did you
temple
take care? Yes.
while pursuing your purpose?
Exactly.
Because they shouldn't be mutually exclusive.
And that wasn't a question that I was able to answer. I'm still working on it, to be quite
Yeah.
honest.
I could understand.
But yeah, those are the thoughts that came to my mind.
That's so interesting and profound because I was just thinking even about myself. I wish we didn't have to trade off anything for being healthy. But I think people have to recognize this isn't an ideal world. And when you're prioritizing something, you're also having to prepare to take a blow somewhere else. Right? Like also being in the middle of filming a podcast of my own. That time has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? And it's going to come from my family. And in order to have success in one area, you have to be willing to compromise in another area. And I think psychologically the issue is people are engaging in what I call middle grounding. They're looking for that unicorn where everybody wins. Where I win, where y'all win, when I get what I need to get done, you get what you need to get done while we're making money
Right.
and not being stressed out. And I'm like, that's the stuff of dream.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, it is.
Work-life balance is not a middle point. It's just understanding the relationship between two things. Having healthy boundaries so that we don't make those things our idols. And then learning how to realign after we accomplish what it is we need to accomplish.
You're correct.
And two, I think when it comes to money, it's like, how much do you actually need, right?
Right.
When we think about it, I was listening to this podcast the other day, and they were like, we're paying for our drinking water. You
Okay.
know, we're paying for the food that we eat. These things were free
That's something, eh?
back in the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Are you willing to make this sacrifice to have what you think? Or are you able to reframe your mind so what you think you need can be accomplished another way? So as opposed to us thinking we can't have everything, can you reframe your mind in the way where, okay, so maybe I can't. Maybe I take my money somehow and I buy a small little house where I'm independent, you know, and I'm not paying for food or all that, self-sustaining. I'm not paying for food and all these little stuff, right? So maybe we spend more time growing our own food and whatever,
Right.
but maybe we do it as a family, you know, because we're not relying on the money coming in as much because we have what we actually need, what money is used for, to buy food, for shelter, etc. Right? So maybe it's a way of reframing our minds to figure out to get what we want to put out of the system, because within the system you're caught.
Wow.
You know, you have to stay at the job, you have to, you know, if you have the mortgage, etc., like you have to stay, and the system was created that way. I guess this is conspiracy again, but
Conspiracy theorists over here.
yeah, for me it's like, how do you reframe that, you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
That's
But
one of
yeah.
my favorite words, man. I must have said that at least over 100,000 times since I started this, because we're not really saying no to what you want, but we are asking, is there a better way to go around it? Is there a
Exactly.
better way to achieve it? Is there some obstacles in the way that's making this harder than it needs to be? Do you have some preconceived notions about things or some preconditioning that's present in this thing
Right.
that you kind of need to work yourself out of? Like for me, transparent moment, I didn't realize I used to eat according to my plate.
Oh yeah.
So here it is now. I'm coming up in a kind of structure where it's like, you got to finish your food because people in the world starving.
Yes.
Right.
So there's a guilt associated with not eating
I
everything.
think that's common Bahamian culture.
Like literally 101, right?
That was me
And it's
wholeheartedly.
like plate got like 3 different versions of carbs in it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean protein
Teeny.
smothered in the sauces.
3
and,
meats, not just one.
Teeny.
you know,
Weeny.
3 meats.
If there's vegetables, teeny weeny
And
side.
I'm talking about the little bit of
With
veggies,
cheese,
man.
with cheese on that broccoli.
Insignificant, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, wow, we wonder why we're so chronically inflamed, why we have digestive issues, why our sleep patterns are so off, why even though we got rest, we wake up still feeling tired and lethargic, right? Because there's some preconceived things happening here that's stopping us from getting what we needed. So recently I went on like a 5-day fast with just water,
Awesome.
right? And I prepared for it.
Yeah.
I made sure I hydrated. I made sure I kind of eased into it by slowly
Electrolytes.
adjusting things in my diet. Had my electrolytes handy, and that kind of a thing. And I noticed that I was ignoring a lot of sensations in my body of satiety because I was only looking at the plate. And when I started to make that shift, I'm like, how long has this been here in me?
Right.
I'm trying to think, like, what did I do different to wake this up? And it's like it was always there. It was just the noise in my life through a lot of various things that stopped me from receiving that cue, from receiving that signal. And I'm so happy that I was able to kind of receive that signal, because the things I now used to think were so impossible or not able to be achieved unless you go some kind of extreme route,
Right.
I'm seeing it's a little bit, it's not that complicated.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I can still have a little bit of rice. I can still have, my favorite kind of chicken. I can still dabble here and there
Right.
on, whatever guilty pleasure that is, donuts, chocolate. But it's like, ultimately, I'm starting to see in moderation, things can really change. So it's not, you can't have this, it's reframing. And I think if our culture can embrace reframing a little bit more, we can uncover a world of solutions that's always been here. Just haven't been tapping into it.
For sure.
Yeah.
I tend, for some things, I'm like, you shouldn't have it all. Just because of all the things I know.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's healthier versions of everything.
Oh, that's true.
Like when you have your chocolate, just get like, dark chocolate. And if you want like chips, there's like, get a chip with only 3 ingredients. That's
Agreed.
potatoes, salt. You know what I mean?
Or make them
So-
yourself.
Exactly. And there's so much things you can make
Reframing
yourself.
your mind.
Reframing.
Exactly.
Yes, I'm really interested in, so like for you who are having a problem with like your food, I'm really interested in what got you to think I can do a 5-day water fast, and how you prepared for that. Like what clicked in your mind? We're like, this is possible.
Yeah. So, fasting for us in the faith isn't necessarily that uncommon of a thing.
No,
Correct.
it's not.
So I've been there before, right?
Okay.
It's kind of like I know what
A
to feel.
full water day fast you've done before?
I've done that before. It wasn't so spiritual in nature, though. It was kind of like a byproduct of just intermittent fasting,
Okay.
where it was like, let me see if I could just turn the fat burning up a little bit more. Like I wanted to see what my body could deal with, right? Controlled stress. And I was happy with the way I felt. I learned a little bit more about myself, but I realized that fasting just gave me so much clarity. Not just to hear from God, but to also hear from my body, to also hear from my mind, to hear from the things that I got so comfortable just overlooking. And it's like it realigned me. It brought me back to the center that I thought I needed to go far and wide to look for. It was always there. So I figured, let me see. I'll be smart about it. I'm not proving anything to anybody. Like if I felt bad on the second or third day, I'm done.
Right.
You know? But I felt good. And I continued to move, and I continued to be still. I continued to stay present in what was happening. And I was so happy with the information I got back out of that. And once I got what I needed to get out of it, it was no problem ending it. So now I'm trying to see if I can integrate doing maybe on a smaller scale, like maybe 1 or 2 day fast every beginning of the month. Just to make sure that I am where I need to be
Right.
before I add other things into that mix.
That's so amazing, because I think that's step one, like
Yeah.
reframing your mind. And a lot of people, like you said initially, they feel like it's too extreme,
Right.
and it's almost impossible to get anything
So true.
done.
So true.
And so you were able to say, hey, let me consider it, actually try it, and move
Yes.
forward, because that's like a huge deal. I feel like a lot of people don't even want to try.
That's so true.
Right? So you tried it, you were able to get through the experience, and now you have that enlightenment, and now you see how it affected your body, and you can move forward.
I realized it wasn't that complicated, like he
Exactly.
said.
That was it. I was so relieved. I'm like, oh, thank you, Lord. It's not that complicated. I don't have to hire a
Exactly.
team of scientists
Yeah.
to kind of do blood
You're
work
not going
on
to die.
me.
Yeah.
Figure out, right?
Yeah.
But I'll tell anybody this, right? Like,
But he was prepared, he said
Yes,
too.
that is important
that's
as well.
powerful. Discomfort is not negative. And I think that's what stops a lot of people from engaging in healthier practices, because it's
Yes.
uncomfortable.
Yes.
They're unfamiliar with it.
Yes.
And so when we start associating discomfort with negativity, psychologically our mind says, I'll have none of it.
Right.
There's no room for negativity.
I wonder if that's a Bahamian thing.
I think it is. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people don't even realize they're in love with stress.
Yes.
They're in love with drama. They are in love with this avoidant mentality that we've developed. So much so that we don't even realize we're just looking for pure hedonism. A place where I could just feel good all the time.
Yes.
Conversations are great.
Wow.
No confrontations,
The food's
no
good.
issues. Just wake up and it's like the Garden of Eden ain't here like that no more. Like we got work to do. You know, we got to be intentional. We have to work through things.
Exactly.
We're going to butt heads.
Exactly.
Those things aren't the problem. It's a failure to navigate it properly. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
That's right.
Join our community on patreon.com/soakthesun and download our health and wellness guide today.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
that's
That
very
you said the
insightful.
pursuit of hedonism.
Yeah.
When you frame it like that, I
Right.
wonder if people if they heard it that way, if that
Right.
would automatically switch their mind, because no one's trying to move. That should be no one's pursuit,
Yeah,
especially
honestly.
coming from a faith-based standpoint. Of course, pursuit of hedonism. That's
Yeah.
crazy, and that's what it's constant pleasure,
Yes.
right?
You know, I see that a lot in relationships too, with people who are starting out dating. They get so caught up in this compatibility conversation, and they don't realize they're looking for a unicorn, right? And unicorns don't exist to my knowledge.
Yes.
I don't know if you've all seen any.
No, I haven't seen any. Yeah.
Cool, we're on the same page,
I
right?
haven't been a fan.
And it's like, you may not be able to find a unicorn, right? But you could find a horse. And that horse ain't gonna have everything you're looking for. But it speaks to how you have to kind of be a whole person before you enter into a lot of these things.
Very true.
Because when you're not a whole or near whole person, you're starting to expect people and things to be more than what they could be for you.
Exactly.
And then we start blaming people for our unhappiness. We start blaming people for things that we can't even control, when it's like, that's life. There's no such thing as perfection.
Right.
We're all having to work through things. We all have our unique challenges. And we don't want to get so caught up in finding the situation that doesn't require us to be intentional. I think that's like a secret desire that we don't get to add words to. We all yearn for the day when we could just wake up and things are things. You know? Where I don't have to wake up and be intentional about budget.
Right.
I don't have to be intentional about food. I don't have to be intentional about depositing into this relationship. Where it's like I could wake up and YouTube will raise my daughter. Like, no, it just don't work, right? So we have to learn as believers to make room for discomfort being an okay part of healthy living. But it's just how we respond to it.
For
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So what were you say are some of the traits of being a whole person?
Yeah. So I think a whole person first begins with understanding how and why you got to be here in the first place, which is connecting back to the source. Seeing that everything about value and worth is already in you. There's nothing we could do to change our value. It's already there. It's already high. It's either you're seeing it or you're not. So I tend to kind of steer people away from conversations where it's like, how can I improve my value and my self-worth? I'm like, it's already there. You just got to learn to see it for what it is. And I think a whole person is able to see that they were beautifully and fearfully made. That there's a God who knows all things, who created me uniquely, who's put this quirk in me that society may say is wrong,
Right.
that society may not approve of, but works so well for what it is God intended me to work in. So instead of trying to correct that, let me see if there's more to that,
Right.
right? Learning that a whole person is someone that doesn't fit in. A whole person is someone who is aligned. And you could be aligned and not fit in, right? In the same way, you can stand for what it is you believe in, you can stand for principles, and that's immediately going to put you into conflict with people who don't stand for those things. So being a whole person is also understanding that it's always principles over feelings. That if you learn to prioritize feelings over principles, then you make the goal how people interpret things. You make the goal how people feel. And sometimes the right thing ain't gonna feel good.
Right.
True.
Sometimes the right thing will hurt me. It's not personal. Sometimes the right thing will hurt you. It's not personal. But once we can see that it's the principle, like this ain't Harrison speaking. This the principle speaking.
Right.
The principle is just in Harrison, so it's coming out with my voice.
Right.
But this ain't me. And I'll usually say that to people just, when I'm moving around in life, like, listen, don't take this personally, because this ain't me. This is just the principle.
Yeah.
I don't own the principle.
Exactly.
I'm just applying it, right? So I believe that those are some deeper characterological traits. That's what I believe a whole person is, or should be.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what would you say is like one thing that people can do to move towards this whole person, as you said, or to move away from stress and stress impacting their physical health and their relationships? Like, what's one thing people can do today to start moving in the right direction?
Stop expecting yourself out of other people. Okay. So,
I want to snap.
so universally applicable. I've been saying that from I knew myself to be this. And even a little before it, I probably just didn't have the words for it, but we're all different. To date, there's about 8 billion people on Earth, and that ain't the billions who's already passed through. And when you start expecting for people to think like how you think, to see the world how you see it, and to feel what you feel, differences now become the problem. And I see so many people trying to reconcile differences in the world, and it's showing up in their frustrations. You'll hear people just in comments and passing, right? Like, what you think get into that person? What you think made them choose that decision? They can't see. It's more simple. It don't have to be this difficult and challenging, And I'm like, we're different though. I could look at a strawberry and understand that that's a strawberry. Someone else could look at that strawberry and says, well, it just looks like a red fruit. And so in my mind, strawberry is common knowledge. Like, who don't know what a strawberry is? What's wrong with you? And immediately I'm put into conflict with that person because I'm not creating space for differences to be okay. So I never want to expect my wife to think like how I think because she's a woman, I'm a man.
Right.
I never expect my 5-year-old daughter to think how I think. She's 5. But the one common thing that all human beings share is that we're human. We've all felt afraid. We've been angry. We've been hurt. We've experienced joy. We wonder about the future. We wonder if we made the right choices about the past. Once we can tap into that shared experience, now you start to see that we're all just trying to find our way to those same things. We're all just trying to figure out how to love, how to live, how to draw closer to God. It's just we sometimes don't always approve of the methodologies. But I can say without a shadow of a doubt that when you can learn to stop expecting yourself out of other people, peace comes into the picture. And when peace comes into the picture, so many things start evaporating out of your being. Negativity, control, obsession with outcomes. Because now someone who is able is actually there in position, and I'm trusting in that to drive me forward.
It's so interesting. As you say that to me, when you said that, I came up with the conclusion
Okay.
in my interpretation that the default that we should have for people that we meet, obviously if they're not like completely
Toxic or-
Right.
toxic or
Right.
whatever, the default should be love.
Always.
And once we have that default, then we're more willing to do what you said, like to stop having our own expectations of who we are, and
Right.
placing those on other people.
So true.
And I definitely need to do that more for sure. Because when
Yeah.
you said that, I thought of myself. And I know I do, from everything that I've learned, know that that's my perspective and know that they're coming from a different perspective, a different life experience, but it's still hard sometimes to remember to adjust
That's
to
so
that
good.
default
That's so good.
as opposed to, like, I don't get it. Why'd they do that? You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
I think
for sure.
what fuels it is just we know the work we've put in to be a certain way. Like I know I studied. I know that I've worked on sensitivity. I know I just move around the place with manners and respect. So when I see someone who ain't doing it, and I am doing it, it's like, well, I could do it, so you could do it too.
Yeah.
But that also makes the assumption that we had the same things, that we
Very
had the
true.
same families, that we had
Right.
the same
Very true.
experiences.
Right.
And so we start to think about problems as being simple. And the minute you start thinking about problems as simple, you're more likely to become condescending because this is stuff everybody should know. And if everybody should know it, why do I have to waste time explaining it to you?
To you.
Exactly.
Right? So if we can see that there's no such thing as a simple problem, we can engage in the right kind of dialogues to actually help people change.
Right.
So it's not, that's what your common sense tell you to do. It's, I see what you did. Could you help me understand why you did it?
Right.
And it takes a little bit of slowing down. Because some of us have conditioned this emotionality in us where we react the minute people say things, the minute they do things, and we just totally remove ourselves from the conversation. But we could have been more effective in getting a certain outcome.
Exactly.
Correct.
So I just encourage people all the time to be a little bit more patient and present in understanding that these are differences. They're okay. They're not wrong. They're just a little different.
Yeah, for sure.
But do you feel there's certain circumstances where I came across this quote, I think, from a podcast where the term was "let them," right? So if you've already thought about putting your what's the term that we use? Your shoes on someone else's foot, or something
Right.
along that line. If you've already sat down and thought about that, and it's not working, or it doesn't seem to have any benefit,
Right.
are there situations where you just let
Let
them just pray
For
and
sure.
say, God, you take control. That's the only thing that I can do in this particular situation.
Yeah.
I just want to ask that question.
Yeah, that's powerful. If I take a page out of my dating book, dating is the process of observing someone's nature and then determining if I want to align myself with that nature. Because you're not going to be able to change that nature,
Right.
right?
Right.
So if I buy a dog, that dog will remain a dog for as long as I have the dog. So the question we should be asking is, what do dogs do? They shed fur. They bark. They need a certain diet, right? Without training, they could eat up your furniture,
Right.
right? So we can train a dog to be a human, but we could train a dog to be a better dog. But the one thing that won't change is that dog being a dog. And a lot of us look at people, instead of seeing them where they are, instead of observing their nature, we fall in love with the potential that we think they have. Potential that can come into fruition with a little bit of elbow grease, a little bit of work. And we get excited about that, man. So we start signing you up for classes, and I could book a session with Harrison. I could see it now. And it's like, this is all good in theory.
Right.
I see feminine energy.
You know what I mean? But that process didn't start with acceptance. And I think a lot of times we fail to accept what people are. And I think because we miss that step, we engage with people almost on a conditional basis. Like, I'll give you this love you're looking for once you change. So really what we need to do is, once we can see that maybe natures aren't aligned, now we can learn how to manipulate distance and love. Where it's like, some people I can love very closely, because our natures are aligned. Some people I have to love from a distance because our natures don't align.
Right.
The goal is never to stop loving.
Right.
It's to find out the right kind of formula through space and engagement. How can we exist in love?
Right.
And space is not an indicator that I don't love you. I just wish people would stop saying that. That if I love you, we got to be buddy-buddy all the time. I got to be right up in your skin. No. Some people, I get happy birthdays from once a year. But if they need me, I'm there.
Correct.
If I need them, they're here. And some people I engage in with every day. Some people I stop and I keep it light with. Some people, man, we get deep. Some relationships are business. Some relationships are personal. Some relationships are historical, Kingsway. And it's like, we don't ever want to look at space as an indicator that I don't love someone. My only criticism here in our religion is that we think forgiveness automatically means reconciliation. And we force a lot of people back into situations that aren't conducive for their health, simply because we feel there shouldn't be space if you say you love.
Right.
And that's just sad for me, because I think that we need to find more spaces, at least in our faith, where we can incorporate a lot more of what we're learning now in psychological practices and therapeutic practices, to say there's a better way we can coexist as people. We don't just want to use religion as a scapegoat to unintentionally harbor toxicity
Right.
by forcing people into situations because that's what we're used to, right? So I guess that's my little spiel on some things I feel very passionate about. But, you know, to your point, we just have to learn to see that we're designed to be different. And if we can just put a little bit more effort into finding the common grounds, we'll see it. And then it's from those common grounds you determine, is that enough for me to have peace? If it is, co-sign it with commitment. If it isn't, sorry, but I have to move on.
Right.
And we need to make it that simple.
That's good.
Very wise counsel, I think.
Yes, for sure.
Appreciate that.
So I know we're tight on time. Do you have time for one last question?
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay, last question. Going off of you speaking about relationships,
Yeah.
what do you think? Because a lot of people are out there looking for the one, quote unquote,
The one.
the one. How do you think people can, in the wait time?
Yeah, shift from a mindset of like scarcity and pressure to one of faith and trust in God's timing.
That is so good, man. I think we gotta release outcomes, and we have to get back to creating genuine experiences with people again. A lot of single people I've found are waiting on a relationship to begin living their life. And I guess it's kind of like a badge to say I'm finally moving on because I got a man, got a woman, I'm engaged now, I'm married, right? And women more so than men deal with this clock, this somewhat biological, somewhat psychological clock, where it's like, I need to hurry up and be married so I could have these kids,
Yeah, right.
so I could have energy when I have these kids, right? Because I ain't trying to be 40 at a grade 6 graduation. But that's how it could be.
Way past us.
But that's how it's gonna be. Like,
young for us.
and my thing is, right, where does that come from? Like, who says you only have you have to have children within this span? Because what we end up doing is we force people into relationships prematurely who aren't ready for commitment, who don't understand that change is a part of commitment, who doesn't fully understand the meaning of service. And so now when I feel different, my commitment changes.
Right.
And that's not what commitment does.
No.
Commitment is what you do in spite of what you feel.
Exactly.
So you have to learn to take it slow and understand that when you focus on an outcome, you're more likely to settle so you can hurry up and get there.
Exactly.
And we don't want that to happen. And so I just encourage people to generate genuine experiences with people. Go out into the food store, instead of just looking for items on your list, lift your head up and look at the opportunities to connect.
In the
And
food store.
right. And it's like, you ain't even looking for a man or a woman.
Right.
You're engaging with people.
Okay.
Like, I do this wherever I go.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just so interesting because you never knew that that person was doing that. Or you didn't know that person was connected to that. But because of that engagement, I now have access to a space I would have never had access to.
Exactly.
Right.
Because I was only focusing on frosted flakes and bread. You know,
Yeah.
No frosted flakes.
it's like, well,
No
yeah,
bread.
right?
bread.
Food stuffer.
Or-
They're messing with you. Go ahead.
Or brownie. We can say, I don't know what the healthy cereal is, but it's like, y'all know what I'm trying to say.
The outer perimeter.
Out of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like we miss so much opportunities to engage with people. And I think the inflaming factor is we're not dealing with trauma. We're not dealing with past negative experiences. We are still reeling from the time we were cheated on, the time we were betrayed, the time we were backstabbed. So trust in people is at an all-time low. And, you know, you just look at the news. You see corruption in the police force. You see distrust building in the church between leaders and congregations. You hear about scandals. You hear about all sorts of things. So I think it's now much harder for people to really believe that people are genuine. But it just speaks to how we have to be so much more intentional
Right.
in having these genuine experiences with people so that we could run through the numbers quicker. So I'll frame it like this. If I told you that you were 10 failures away from massive success, how quickly would you want to hurry up and fail?
Very quickly.
Very.
Very quickly, right? Same thing for dating. If you were 10 failures away from your husband, like you wasting time.
Right.
You trying to get it right the next time you step out.
Exactly.
And it's like, just step out.
Right.
Just engage. Introduce yourself, right?
Yeah.
Make a comment on what you're seeing. Who does your hair? Those shoes. Ah, not cologne, not perfume. And you'll be surprised to know what that translates into.
Yeah. I find myself doing that generally just because I have a natural curiosity for people.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that you say that. I completely agree because I feel like through those comments and little interactions, you find yourself in places you would have never expected.
Yes, that's it right there.
Yeah. But anyway, this is so good.
High
Yeah.
five.
I feel like it was so quick too.
Yes.
We have
We
to have
hope-
you on for another time.
That's good talk.
Yeah. Always a pleasure. I feel like we always end up talking to you for so long. It feels like
It goes quickly.
We just
Yeah,
have
it
them
goes so quickly.
conversations.
Yes.
yeah, for sure. Well, thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
It's my pleasure, man.
This
I
was
love
so
it all.
good. I'm sure people would love everything that we spoke about and all of Harrison's great advice. We will put Harrison's information, anything that you want us to put down in our show notes.
Sure.
And if you want to say anything to the camera, if you want,
Yes.
any
Yeah.
connection, any ways to connect or anything like that.
We're all having to exist in a very limited space. You never know what people are going through. You never know what people have come out of. You never know what people are wrestling with. I think we could all benefit from individuals exercising just a little bit more empathy and consideration, right? Smiles don't always show the truth of what's going on inside. And so we just have to learn to move with a little bit more mindfulness, a little bit more understanding and compassion. That it's not always good for everybody. It's not always good for us. Some days for me, some days for you. We all just have to learn to show one another more respect, find more room to show love, find more room to show understanding. And I think we could all get along just a little bit better if we make those small adjustments.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yes.
Thanks
Thank you so
again,
much,
Harrison.
Harrison.
My pleasure.
This was awesome.
Thank you.
Guys, let us know if you have any questions or concerns, if that you'd like to see more information in regards to this. Just let us know. Thank you so much again for joining us with this episode of Suts.
Like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you guys in the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.